Tonight on News 5 Live, photos emerge of the remnants of a suspected drug plane found up north. In the Senate, a bill to impose stronger penalties against butane retailers who sell LPG below the floor price is met with opposition. Oceania and the network of NGOs are against government's decision not to ban gill nets. And Alito Pook's headless body was discovered along the Belize-Guatemala border. Today's brother says that the family has no idea what led to his cruel death. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
Smart customer.
Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Friday, December 6th. I am Marlene Cuellar. As early as 8 a.m. today, reports reaching our newsroom were that the remnants of a suspected plane were discovered somewhere in the village of Chan Chen in Corozal district, which is not far from the Mexican border. The images sent to us show that the suspected drug plane made the illegal landing before it either combusted or was torched to destroy any evidence of its cargo. Late this evening, police issued an official report on the plane. It says that the twin-engine aircraft with markings N5461 was found approximately a quarter of a mile northwest of Chan Chen village and that about 75% of the aircraft was destroyed. But there were several other items discovered at the scene. Those include 11 small aluminum buckets, 4 portable rechargeable LED lights, and a magazine containing 34 live rounds of 7.62 ammunition. No one was in the area. The government's war bill against the 3 major importers of liquid petroleum gas went to the Senate floor today. Prime Minister Dean Barrow and his government are at war with Belize Western Energy Limited, Gas Tomza, and Southern Choice Butane Zeta Gas. This week, the Prime Minister used words such as mafia and cartel to describe the importers and threatened government will take their stock. This is because a significant drop in butane prices has forced the hand of the Prime Minister to enact new laws and create a statutory instrument that would drastically penalize these 3 companies if they sell butane below the floor price which government recently set. The company's decision to retail at a low price is good news for consumers, especially during the festive season. But the government says that the new prices are predatory and aimed at eliminating small retailers in the industry. The controversial bill was today debated in the Senate.
This piece of legislation reeks of protectionism. This piece of legislation is to support the National Liquefied Petroleum Gas Company, which comes into effect in January of 2020. This piece of legislation, Mr. President, is not to protect small retailers as it is couched. This piece of legislation, Mr. President, is essentially denying lower butane prices. And at a time, Mr. President, when we're in the Christmas season, when we all know this is when everybody is baking and doing their turkey and so on, why, like the Scrooge of Christmas, we're taking away a small little benefit from the consuming public? Why is it that we are denying them cheaper butane prices? And the only conclusion that I could come to, Mr. President, is that this piece of legislation is really to protect a monopoly that has been created by this government.
You're not being able to see past your nose because of politics. That is basically where we are. Because of politics, we're looking to criticize this. Mr. President, this has nothing to do with National Gas Company. This has nothing to do with protecting national gas. Absolutely nothing. That is derived from a lack of understanding. National Gas will sell at the landed price plus its markup to everybody across the board. What we're dealing with here is the retail part of the business, which National Gas is not going to be involved in. So as far as National Gas is concerned, as a company, it doesn't matter who it sells to. The demand is there and it is going to have the supply. So this is a move to protect the smaller players in the industry.
It is kind of sad that the bill comes at this time because it seems as if though Christmas is used to justify whether we pass it or not. And we did not believe that that was fair, because this is a bill for, as long as it remains a bill, it will be forever. So we felt that it was wrong, maybe wrong time for the bill, no? But the fact that when you look at the bill, and how Belize was being fleeced for so many years by these people. And the fact that the whole intention seemed to be to close down the small man, to take away the benefit from him in his little company. And then the fact that there's a new animal that is coming on stream, I think it was incumbent then to protect the small investors.
In October, representatives of Belize Western Energy Limited, Gas Tomsa, and Southern Choice Butane Zeta Gas met with Prime Minister Dean Barrow to discuss the national gas company, which in 6 months will begin operations as the sole importer of butane in the country. In August, the government gave the nod to the national gas company and has 25% shares. The amendment to the Supplies Control Act is seen by some as government's move to protect the private interests of the national gas company.
Granted, when the new company comes into operation, there's going to be a formula to arrive at the supplier's price, but there's still no formula that we can ascertain to arrive at the retail price. So today's attempt, while it was an attempt to stop what they term as predatory pricing by a monopoly or a cartel, they went as far as saying it was a cartel, we believe it's piecemeal and it should have been addressed differently. They could have done more to address it properly instead of seeking to go to war.
And then the enforcement, the war that you speak about.
What's the enforcement mechanism? They can't even enforce the present laws right now. And the present people who are breaking the Supplies Control Act, that department is severely understaffed. So it's ludicrous.
Okay, but don't you take the argument in relation to these 26, 25 suppliers?
Oh, I did. And I said it's about time that the government seeks. I was happy that it finally got off its laurels and sought to protect retailers, because too many times in the past, retailers, even now, retailers are held to the mercy of those who receive special permits.
If that world where Senator Lizarraga came up with the figure after putting the figures in his formula, came up with gas, the cash price being $2 and change.
With your point of order, Mr. President, it wasn't my formula. I'm using the formula that was in law. I never make no formula. And I can show you how I arrived at that price. But I never make no formula.
I stand corrected, Senator. The formula enshrined in law. If that was the only consideration, the good senator could go online, make his application for how much green hams he wants to import, and within a day, he would get back a positive answer, go and import his ham and have no problem. But no, every time.
On a point of order, that's absolutely untrue. That system does not exist and
Precisely.
It does not work that way.
Precisely. Neither does the formula. That is my point. That is my point. That system does not exist. Neither does the formula.
Former teacher Alito Pook was found dead a week after his disappearance. His headless body turned up along the Belize-Guatemalan border on Thursday evening. The family says that they don't know why he was killed, but they do know that he went across the border to Melchor between Thursday night and early Friday. Not much else is known about his movements across the border or what exactly led to his death. His bodily remains were buried just after midnight. Reporter Andrea Polanco tells us more about the Sakat's resident's murder.
There are more questions than answers about what led to the brutal murder of 42-year-old Alito Pook. The former teacher spoke with his mother on the phone last week Thursday, and that was the last time his family heard from him. They realized he was missing when his friends couldn't reach him the following day, and ever since then, they've been searching for him.
His close friends were the ones that notified us, and we're like, you know what? Alito is nowhere to be found. So we were like, oh, you know, kind of taken aback by it because, Alito's never the type of person that would just pick up and go just like that. After that, we were able to mobilize all our family and we were able to get together search groups and be able to conduct groundwork, every type of search that you can imagine to be able to, with the hope, of able to find my brother alive.
And it was during those search efforts to locate Alito Pook alive that the family found out that sometime between Thursday and Friday he had crossed the western border to go over to Melchor. To do what exactly? The family has no idea.
Now, in regards to knowing what did he went to do there or with who he went there, that's another mystery because we're not able to know.
But you said he goes frequently to Melchor. He knows the area.
Yes, my brother would know exactly where he went. And if he went, he would specifically know where he's going.
Do you know if he goes to see maybe a particular friend or he goes to do a particular business over there? Do you know any at all? Maybe what he could have been doing there?
And like I said, those are questions that will remain a mystery because we don't know. We don't know.
Family had search teams in Belize and Melchor, and on Wednesday, when a severed head was found in Suchitan, Guatemala, the family feared the worst. But local authorities said that the head was not Alito's. And on the following day, Thursday, a group of Guatemalans found a headless, decomposing body along the border, but in Belize, on the property of Belizean Jorge Espat. Espat told us that he believes the body was thrown over there onto the disputed property near the Guatemalan community of Barrio de Judá. The Pooks say that although the body didn't have a head, they were able to positively identify it.
That's how we were able to find out of the reports of this X or Y body missing, found on the border or whatever. And then, we went there and verified that ourselves. But from what I know, I would say nothing was found on him. We were only able to retrieve his body. And in reality, that's all we ever wanted. We just wanted closure to the situation.
Geraldo Pook says that his brother Alito was easygoing. He once served as the chairman of Sakots where he lived and was active in the community. The family says that they want to see the person or persons responsible for this killing be brought to justice.
My brother is one of the most easiest person to get around with. He's a people person. Based on his history, he was once the chairman of this village. Back then, he was active in politics, active within the community framework in its development, and some of its infrastructure. He's the sole responsible for that. It is hard to believe that someone can just easily, decide the fate of someone on their own hands and take a relative away from you. And it's something that our family is still struggling with it. It's a process and time heals, they say. And we trust on that process, right? And we just hope that whatever happens, justice one way or the other comes and knocks on our doors, because I do not wish this on anyone, because it's been one of the longest weeks you could ever imagine in anyone's life.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
Alito Pook lived alone and didn't have any children. There's much more news after the break, so stay tuned. There are serious allegations coming out of Santa Cruz village in the Orange Walk district. The village is a hotspot for contraband and other illegal activities. The reports speak of the alleged drowning of an individual who was attempting to swim across the Rio Hondo River from Belize to Mexico, but was accosted by officials in the area and drowned. Sources in the Customs Department and Belize Defense Force deny the reports. Still, several persons have sworn to the incident, but out of fear have equally refused to go on camera. Many have complained of officials abusing their power in the area. Here is a report from the village.
Several persons are alleging that officials in the area have provoked the death of a man who drowned in the Rio Hondo River on Thursday afternoon, but the identity of the individual is unknown since, according to many, he was among a group of persons, including Cubans, who were attempting to swim across the river into Mexico. They were allegedly intercepted by officials who were in the area, but something went wrong and one of the men drowned. But there is no official report of such an incident taking place, and when we checked with personnel from the BDF and customs in the area, they said not so. In fact, they say a minor incident was taken out of context. The officials say they spotted a man swimming in the area. They approached him and realized he was a Mexican national who was diving, so they returned to their post. Customs officials say they hired 2 divers from San Antonio village to look for a drone they accidentally dropped into the river. Persons in the area point out that a similar incident happened only days ago with a man who was swimming in the river. He, wishing to remain anonymous, told us what he experienced.
I made a swim on the river. I made there like half of the middle on the river. Then after that, the boat immediately come, and then the Mexican people holler at me. And then BDF they come. So when I step on the middle, because I say the boat can't cross the Mexican side. So when I see, then cross the Mexican side and then try to join me, I tell the man, I no got nothing for me. Then the BDF tell me in Spanish, the man holla, and a mí no me importa. So I tell the man I no got nothing, and the man try to join me only because the Mexican people see me, and the Mexican people help me. I think them stone one of them BDF, and when the BDF left me, the man them baligan, and then after that I continue swim, and then I reach on the Mexican side. Then I tell the man I no got nothing, I know the contraband. Then the man tell me, oh, he no give a, because he acquired me and this and that, and the man no want make I crash. The man dash me lot of water on my face.
Using the boat?
Yeah, on the boat. Only me that, like, me 2 BDF, only 2 BDF, because they know me got no immigration, nothing, only 2 BDF.
It is important to note that the area is not a legal point of entry and has been a hotspot for contraband activity. It is known that human and drug smuggling also take place along this point between both countries. As the Christmas season sets in, for many days now, BDF personnel have been camping out at the riverbank where canoes once lined up and ferried Belizeans across into San Francisco botes. Customs officials have also stepped up their patrols in the area. Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Late on Thursday, government announced that it had taken a decision to control and eventually phase out gill nets. Government says that the measures are to be carried out over a period of 2 years and are intended to control the overall negative impacts of gill nets in Belize. Other changes include immediate moratorium on gill net licenses, restrictions on its importation, and the prohibition of its use in the southernmost waters south of Punta Gorda. Now, if you've been following the conversation about gill nets in recent years, you will know that there are several marine conservation organizations and groups that have been calling for a ban of gill nets because of its high level of bycatch, where it traps and kills marine animals like sea turtles and sharks. It also entangles and kills protected species while depleting fish stocks. One of the major proponents of a ban is Oceana Belize, which has carried out countless awareness campaigns for a ban. Oceana calls the government's decision a failure to safeguard the livelihood and rights of 97% of commercial fishers who do not use gill nets. Vice President Janelle Chanona, who is out of the country at the moment, spoke with the press via phone today about government's decision.
It is clear to me that the identified way forward is not based on science. It's not based on any thought to enhancing the enforcement, or most importantly, perhaps, to supporting the licensed users of this gear. I get the why, especially given the advertisements that we're seeing on television and social media of late. But that why does not begin to justify the reality that this decision will have far-reaching implications for both fisheries and tourism, and therefore to our national economy. And the longer decision makers keep categorizing these issues as strictly environmental issues, the greater the consequences will be for all of us. I also admit that I have a personal fear, and I think it's shared by others, that this decision has sent a very mixed message, one that threatens the foundation of law and order as far as fisheries goes, because by failing to prioritize the licensed users of this gear who are willing to transition, those are the people we have been working with, consulting with. The commercial fishers who aren't using this gear, 97% of them, the catch and release fishers who are being negatively impacted by this gear. I worry that this decision could be interpreted as breaking the law is not only okay, guess what? It will elevate you to a position of priority by the powers that be. And I really think that out of an abundance of caution, we should brace ourselves for an increase possibly in illegal fishing activity, given that it has been proven on multiple occasions that the majority of the users of gill nets are in fact doing so illegally, and that is done by primarily a foreign fishing fleet.
And so in the government's decision to control and eventually phase out the use of gill nets in Belize, they turned down a $2 million fund that the coalition had worked to put together to help the 80-plus licensed gill nets users to transition from gill net use. Chonona says that aid package has now gone away and the government failed to engage them about the $2 million fund, which is a loss for those 83 licensed gill net fishers. Despite government's position, Chonona says that Oceana will continue to advocate for the ban.
The offer of financial support was in fact one of a number of tangible demonstrations of support that we and other members of the NGO community have put on the table to both fishers and the government of Belize to support sustainable fishing practices. We've been in discussions and consultations with a number of government officials over the last 9 years. As you know, there have been multiple changes there. It was only this past summer that it was pointed out to us that beyond all the reasons for removing this gear, that there would need to be support on the table for licensed users. And using the data obtained from the Belize Fisheries Department through the FOIA requests, getting information from the fishers themselves on things like the value of nets and the financial incomes derived from gill netting, figures were calculated and fundraising commenced. So what is or was on the table was the result of just a few months of fundraising that shows that there is that support out there. So, you know, I do have to say that it is lamentable to me that after those offers were officially put on the table 2 months ago, that to date, the ministers of fisheries did not see it fit to have a conversation with us to negotiate on ways forward. There might have been opportunities to ensure that licensed users benefited from the funds that were on the table. I can share that the buyback component would have gone through the Credit Union League. It would have gone directly to the fishers, no middlemen. And so I have to say that we can't cut around the bush. You know, this is a loss to Belize. It's a direct loss to the 83 fishers that would have benefited directly from this. And in some ways, a loss of credibility nationally, because we've just told funders, obviously motivated to support this and support our efforts at sustainability and national fisheries management, that after 20 years of talking about gill nets, we're unwilling to do what needs to be done.
The Belize network of NGOs also reacted to the government's decision to retain the use of gill nets. Senator for the NGOs, Asmani Salah, says that the NGO community will not give up until a gill net ban is implemented.
We were waiting with bated breath after all the work that the NGOs and the coalition had done. What came out in the press release from the government was effectively more of the same, essentially that they need to do a better job in terms of the regulations that are already in place. It was good to hear that you need to be a Belizean citizen to get a fishing license or a permit. So that's an improvement there. It should also have been taken as good news that there would be a gillnet ban south of Punta Gorda, but where south? Is it from Punta Gorda to Sarstoon? Is it from Moho to Sarstoon? Is it just at the Sarstoon River mouth? So there are a lot of answers, and it did not go far enough.
The Belize Territorial Volunteers has also issued a statement saying that through the continued use of gill nets, the government is conceding to illegal fishing. The BTV also says that the new measures in Punta Gorda are a joke since its use in that area is minimal. The Senate debated a $10 million loan motion geared at improving the quality of education. The Inter-American Development Bank Education Quality Improvement Program is designed to mainly improve the quality and gender equity of education at the primary and secondary levels, with special focus on the innovation of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics education. The monies have also been earmarked to the construction and establishment of a Belize STEAM laboratory school to train teachers. While the senators supported the bill, concerns were also voiced.
We keep seeing that we are borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. Who will be responsible at the end of the day? Look at the term of this, the repayment period. Again, Mr. President, let me make it very clear, because I know that it is easy for people to misconstrue our presentations. I am not saying that our teachers don't deserve to be trained. I am not saying that STEAM isn't important. It is very critical for our students. But again, my point is that when we get these things before us, it would be important for us to get as much details as possible so that we can then make decisions based on proper documentation.
I would have wanted to know what a STEAM laboratory school would entail. It sounds very promising. It sounds like something we need, but I'm not sure exactly how that would be set up. If we are talking about one national school, if it's a physical school or a virtual school, or if it will be at various schools, it would have been good to know how this $10 million would have been invested.
Each year we see progressively that students' performance is going down, 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 Mr. President. And so I think we are missing the basics in education.
After the break, we look back at William Danny Mason's Circle of Friends.
Ho, ho, ho.
There was a collective sigh this week when William Danny Mason and 4 other men were found guilty of the beheading of Pastor Llewellyn Lucas in June 2016. Mason, as we have reported, was highly connected, and at the time of the gruesome murder of the pastor, many members of cabinet admitted they had contact and had in fact been at the Belmopan house of the now convicted murderer. News 5's Isani Cayetano looks back at Mason's circle of friends.
Convicted murderer William Danny Mason awaits sentencing for masterminding the kidnapping and beheading of Pastor Llewellyn Lucas. But long before the Guyanese-Canadian businessman became infamous for his role in the most talked about crime in recent history, the man born Rajesh Willett was hobnobbing with the political elite in Belmopan. In fact, he was so well placed in political circles that his sphere of influence also penetrated the Belize Police Department. A few days after he was arrested and charged along with 4 others for lopping off Lucas's head, Prime Minister Dean Barrow weighed in on the optics of the situation on his administration.
Of course I'm concerned because naturally there are certain conclusions, wrong conclusions I think, being drawn in consequence. Look, it's what I said on the radio just now. This man was a con man. He represented himself as a fellow good and true. If ministers did not know any different and were taken in by his pretense at good Samaritanship, that is unfortunate, but as long as the acquaintanceship ministers had with him did not result in any kind of impropriety engaged in or sanctioned by ministers, we will just have to take the licks that the fact that optically it is not an ideal situation brings.
Caught in the web of deceit and chicanery spun by Mason was National Security Minister John Saldivar. Admittedly, Saldivar told the media that he was never duped by Mason.
I have never been a victim. I do know of at least a couple other persons who may have been, and like I said in my statement on Monday, when I became aware last year of some of these things, including what was on the internet, that's when I realized that this guy was no good and I disassociated myself from him.
However, for a time, Mason had contributed significantly to the financing of the Belmopan Bandits, a football organization owned by Saldivar.
He was a contributor to your football club. Did he ever make any contact to you to say, what's going on? I contributed to you, you're not talking to me anymore?
I basically disassociated myself from him, and I think that speaks for itself. I disassociated myself.
Sir, while you've admitted that yes, there were contributions, could you give us an amount?
Well, it was over a period of time, but I would say in excess of 50,000 for sure. Semi-pro football is not a cheap venture, as you know, and he hasn't contributed for the last 2 seasons. He is not a part of my organization anymore.
With the conviction of Mason and his 4 accomplices, Saldivar, in a press release issued immediately after Tuesday's decision, says his name has been cleared of the scandal surrounding his familiarity with Mason. Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
In an on-camera interview with News 5 on December 5th, Vanessa Neal, the first cousin of Gerald Lamb, said that he had died at the Carl Tuchner Memorial Hospital. Lamb was shot 3 times to the head and once to the chest as he rode on a motorcycle with a friend near mile 24 on the Philip Golson Highway. A vehicle drove up beside them and a gunman opened fire on Lamb. He was first rushed to the hospital where Neal succumbed to his injuries. The news of his demise was investigated by authorities, and News 5 has been informed by police and hospital officials that Lamb is on life support in the intensive care unit of the KHMH.
Gerald was on his way to my dad's house, so usually he's in the evening, watch TV, and then the vehicle followed them. He was on a cycle with another young man, and right in front of my dad's house, this is when the incident happened, at close range, I think like approximately 5 feet, because he got 4 shots. The other young man, he jumped off the cycle and he fled, so unfortunately only Gerald received all shots.
I understand several to the head?
Yes, he got 3 shots to the head and 1 in the chest that destroyed his intestines and his organs.
What are the doctors saying in terms of would he recover? You know, what are they saying?
Well, he's dead, so it's just for us to break the news to his mom.
Police visited the Carl Memorial Hospital where they observed Gerald Emilio Lam, 28 years, Belizean of 24 miles Philip Golson Highway, with apparent gunshot wounds to the body. What we understand is that Mr. Lam was riding a motorcycle along with another friend from the direction of Sun Hill towards Crooked Tree. When suddenly a vehicle approached them, the vehicle slowed down and a male person from inside the vehicle fired shots at Mr. Lam, causing the injuries to him. He is presently admitted in a critical condition at this moment.
A murder trial without jury is taking place in the Supreme Court. The accused is Valentine Baptist, who allegedly murdered 19-year-old Devin Parham 3 years ago. Today, Senior Crown Counsel Shanice Lovell called the arresting officer to the stand. He recounted the circumstances leading to the arrest of Baptist. 2 statements were also read into evidence, including one from Parham's cousin, who was the last person to see him alive. Parham's cousin said that on the day of the murder on July 6, 2016, they were at home when they detected a man in the area of Mortars Alley and Cemetery Road in Belize City. He said the individual reached for an object, and when he recognized it to be a firearm, he fled. Devin could not escape the bullets and was injured. The case continues on Tuesday, December 10, 2019. Baptist is being represented by Senior Counsel Simeon Sampson, and the case is being heard before Justice Colin Williams. Prison authorities at the Hatterville prison have confirmed that an inmate was discovered dead. The Guatemalan inmate was behind bars since June 2018 for burglary, theft, and damage to property. The report is that he was found on Thursday night at around 9 o'clock with a cloth around his neck, which was attached to a cell window. Prison authorities say that he was scheduled for a psychiatric evaluation today because he was seen acting strangely. When we come back, in the Senate, questions are raised about exemptions to Hydro Maya. The Hydromaya Power Project Bill 2019 was brought before the Senate today. It is strictly a financial bill that seeks to extend the concession agreement that was signed in 1998 by the Esquivel administration. The bill provides certain exemptions from taxes and duties to the Belize Hydroelectric Development and Management Company, which owns Hydromaya and is the supplier of electricity to BEL. Not much is known about the company and its operations, and today questions were raised about what sort of tax exemptions the owners were receiving for an extended period.
The producer shall be exempt from all taxes measured by or imposed on receipts, revenues, income, or profits, and payroll, and other employment taxes payable to the government of Belize, its agencies, departments, political subdivisions, as well as local, regional, or municipal governments. 2, it goes on to clarify even more about the payroll. It says this exemption shall apply to all officers and employees of the producer who are not citizens or permanent residents of Belize. It then speaks about dividends that would be exempted, payments to shareholders abroad, and interest, etc. It is quite extensive, including exemptions from GST and import duties, etc. So this is contemplating, it is certainly very clearly stated in this bill that Hydromaya will receive.
Yes, it is true the company enjoys these concessions, and yes, it is a fact that it's an extension based on some previous agreement, but the picture must be seen as follows. That the 15 cents that BEL pays to them for the power is better than the 31 cents that we pay to Mexico. So, when BEL sells that power, and there are times when I have understand when the Mexican demand is high, and therefore they don't have the excess to sell us, peak period they call it, it goes as high as 55 cents. And so it is important to keep the domestic production, however small, it's important to keep, because it contributes to that.
Senator for the NGOs, Usmani Salas, and private sector Senator Mark Lizarraga questioned what are the benefits that Belizeans are receiving through the concessionary agreement given to the private company.
Here we have a company that supplies a small portion when it comes to the overall power that BEL purchases, about 2%. But it's a business, and they're getting another tax holiday for another 10 or 15 years. They're making money. But what is the community getting from it? What is the nation getting from it? Are we getting improved prices? No. The answer to all of that is no. So my opposition to that bill was that it was just a company and their investors being protected. So all the promises that were made from the very beginning before the development was put in place, and I gather to generate public support, have not been met.
These people got a concession for 15, not a concession, certain privileges for 15 years. We're seeking to extend it for another period of time. And normally, when you give people concessions, because it's a concessionary agreement, you give them for a certain period of time because the investor would have anticipated that he would have recovered and made a return on his investment. One of my colleagues made mention of some numbers that indicated a fair return on the investment may have been had already. So one has to question, why are we extending it and to what benefit? What is the beneficial purpose of this extension for the people of Belize? When in an environment of so much loans, government owing so much and the government needing so much revenue to service these loans, one would think that we want to share this burden with everybody. And if you have made money on this company already, to have a favorable return on investment, why not start contributing something to the tax base, man? I mean, we can't have these exemptions going into infinity.
The debate in the Senate wrapped up in the afternoon. Coming up after the break, athletes descend at the Marion Jones for this year's Special Olympics. Young athletes from across the country gathered at the Marion Jones Sporting Complex today, where they participated in the annual Special Olympics. Children with diverse abilities were given an opportunity to compete with their peers in 3 sporting disciplines, including bocce, football, and track and field. At the end of the competition, each participant was recognized for completing the respective events they were assigned to. National Director for Special Olympics Belize, Candice Morrison, says creating an environment where children can partake in games against each other is healthy.
Today is our national games, of course, and we have 6 districts. All our athletes coming in, being busted in for 3 sports. So it's bocce, 7-a-side football, and track and field. And of course, we have medical checkups. We have our special smiles. That's our dentist, looking after athletes and making sure they have whatever they need. We had a health promotion booth, so we had all sorts of vegetables made in nice, cute shapes, and they could have gotten them with dressings, healthy shakes, etc., to promote health and fitness, basically.
How important is this kind of activity to boost the morale of children with special needs?
Well, it's extremely important, one, for them to know that they're capable of competing. 2, it brings an atmosphere where it's inclusive, where they're not only competing against those with disabilities, but those without. And so some of them win, and that gives them the opportunity to feel, boost their self-esteem and their morale. It also brings them out of the house to socialize. It gives families the opportunity to see their children perform, compete, and experience joy together.
The CEO in the office of the Prime Minister, Audrey Wallace, in her role as the owner of Colorblind Productions, a private company, has partnered with BTB and Niche to launch a travel channel called See Belize. The event was held today in Belize City, and News 5's Isani Cayetano has this report.
Belize's first travel channel, intended only for that purpose, is a partnership between the Belize Tourism Board, the National Institute of Culture and History, and Colorblind Multimedia Productions. The See Belize channel is a visual showcase of the country's rich cultural, social, and natural splendor.
So what can you expect on this channel? What can you expect? It spans the gamut. Whatever you could think about, what do we eat, what do we enjoy, what are the tourist attractions in each and every district, what are the adventure tours that we can do, what about our animals, what about our flora, all of that and much more. If people want to invest in Belize, what are the real estate places that they can look at? It really, truly spans the gamut. We have incredible natural resources, we have incredible cultural history here.
It is that colorful past that is being used to generate original, authentic, and high-quality video content.
There is no doubt that Belize is one of the world's leading tourism destinations in the Caribbean. In fact, as Minister of Tourism, I'm happy to say that the industry's sustained success during the past 11 years can be attributed to our strategic marketing initiatives to promote Belize, ongoing collaboration with local and international agencies and partners such as Colorblind Media, and continued development and improvements to both properties and services by industry partners. While these activities have been important contributors to this industry's growth, emerging trends in tourism require that we constantly seek out new and creative ways of capturing the attention of travelers.
The brainchild of Audrey Wallace, the Chief Executive Officer in the Office of the Prime Minister, who also holds a seat on the board of the Belize Broadcasting Authority, See Belize is touted as having strong potential reach, as well as to capture the interest of visitors. 6 months ago, Colorblind approached the National Institute of Culture and History to collaborate on the effort.
We were excited to hear what the channel is to offer, not for the tourism impact, but more for the cultural impact and how it would show our communities, our cultures, our beliefs in a creative way.
According to Wallace, the programming content is not limited to travel-related material. It will also serve as a medium for Belizean artists to share original music as well.
I think this is a great platform for us to be able to promote our local artists. And Colorblind is not in the habit of using anybody's music or anything without permission. And so one of the things that we want to do is actually have a conversation with artists for them to see the opportunity and for us to partner. So that means money. When we make money, they make money. It's that simple. Everyone can win with this. At this point, we are in the hole big time, but we're hoping that that will change as soon as more people come on board. So we see this as an amazing platform to promote our local culture, our local artists. And so that is the plan.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
And that's the news. Tune in at 8:30 for the finale of Gimme 5. One lucky person will win a round-trip ticket to the USA courtesy United Airlines and lots of other fabulous prizes. Remember, when your phone rings, don't say hello, say Gimme 5. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at News 5, have a happy and safe weekend. Good night.